Why women criticize other women. Estimated runtime, chapter 8 minutes, 200 narration words. Have you ever watched a woman scan another woman head to toe in under 3 seconds? Have you ever heard a comment that sounded like a compliment, but somehow left a small cut behind? Have you ever noticed that the harshest critic of a woman is very often another woman? Here's the strangest part. Ask most women, and they'll tell you they want other women to succeed. They mean it, and yet the sharpest comments, the quiet exclusions, the subtle competition, so often come from inside the same group. Most people call this jealousy, or say, women just aren't good to each other. But psychology tells a very different, more structural story. This pattern was rarely built by women choosing to be cruel. It was built piece by piece by the environment they were raised and judged inside of. By the end of this video, you'll know the 4 psychological patterns behind this behavior. The first was taught early in the language girls learn before they even understand it. The second is a quirk of how the brain measures threat and comparison. The third is something you've probably scrolled past in the last 10 minutes. And the fourth might completely change who you see as the real author of this pattern. Because sometimes the criticism isn't really about the other woman at all. Picture a girl, 9 years old, on a school playground. She wants to be liked. Every child does. She notices something. When she points out another girl's mistake, a shoe, a haircut, a wrong answer, the group around her laughs, leans in, includes her a little more. Nobody taught her this in words, but she learned it the way children learn everything fastest, through reward. Psychologists call this relational aggression. Unlike physical aggression, it doesn't push or hit. It targets belonging itself, inclusion, reputation, social standing. Research on childhood socialization has found that girls are often steered away from direct confrontation and toward these quieter, indirect forms of conflict instead. Not because girls are naturally crueler, because open confrontation was frequently discouraged in them, while subtle exclusion wasn't. So the tool available to negotiate power became words, not fists. A raised eyebrow, a joke with an edge, a comment about someone's choices. Years later, that 9-year-old is a grown woman. She still finds herself, sometimes, reaching for that same old tool without meaning to. If you've ever caught yourself judging another woman in seconds and felt a flicker of guilt right after, type "I caught myself" in the comments. But childhood only explains the method. It doesn't explain why the target is so often another woman specifically. For that, we need to look at how the brain compares itself to others. Psychologists describe something called social comparison theory. The idea that we don't measure ourselves against the world. We measure ourselves against people close enough to compare to. A stranger from a completely different life barely registers as competition. But someone in a similar position, similar age, similar goals, similar space, that comparison lands hard because it feels relevant. For many women, other women often represent the closest, most relevant comparison available. Same industry, same beauty standards, same limited spotlight. So the brain, without asking permission, treats a similar woman as the sharpest possible mirror. And an uncomfortable mirror is easier to criticize than to sit with. This isn't really about the other woman's flaws. It's about how close her life sits to the one being measured. The less someone resembles you, the less your brain bothers comparing. The more she resembles you, the louder the internal alarm gets. That doesn't make the criticism fair. It makes it explainable. And the third reason, you've probably scrolled past it in just the last 10 minutes. Open any feed and notice what floods it. Perfect skin, perfect body, perfect kitchen, perfect calm. Decades of research on media and body image show something consistent. The more curated images someone consumes, the more critical they become. Not just of themselves, but of other women around them. Because the algorithm doesn't just show beauty, it manufactures scarcity. It quietly suggests there's only room for a few acceptable ways to look, to succeed, to be seen. And when people believe a resource is scarce, they start guarding it, even from people they actually like. That's why a woman can genuinely admire another woman and still feel a small, uninvited spike of comparison in the same breath. It's not always hatred. Sometimes it's fear, wearing hatred's clothes for a few seconds. Which brings us to the fourth reason, the deepest one, the one that has almost nothing to do with women at all. In the 1970s, sociologist Rosabeth Moss Kanter studied women working in environments where they were a small minority. She found something striking. It wasn't that these women disliked each other. It was that many workplaces only made room for one woman at the top, one seat, one slot, one acceptable spot to succeed in. When the world quietly says there's only room for one of you, people don't always fight the system. Sometimes they compete with the person standing next to them instead. Psychologists call this a scarcity mindset, and it isn't unique to women. Any group told there's only room for a few starts treating each other as competition, even while wishing that weren't true. The 9-year-old on the playground never chose that scarcity. She was handed a world that already believed it. And so, quietly, she learned to guard the one seat she thought she might get. That doesn't excuse harsh words. Words still land and they still hurt, but understanding changes the question. It's no longer, why are women so hard on each other? It's, who built a world small enough to make them feel like they had to be? Maybe that girl on the playground never stopped wanting there to be room for everyone. She just grew up inside a system that kept insisting there wasn't, and every woman who chooses to build another woman up instead is quietly proving that system wrong, one relationship at a time. If this made you see a comment differently, comment "more room for all of us" below. And if you want to understand why your mind compares the way it does, the next video on your screen goes even deeper.